Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, as I always say. And in this video, I have a lot of encounters for you from things where you just don't quite know what they are. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, definitely pull up a stump with me, and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching, and thank you for 19,000 subscribers. When I was younger, I'd have these dreams, horrendous dreams. I'd wake up crying, sometimes facing the opposite direction. My feet would be on my pillow. I never knew why, and I never remembered the dreams. But after this one night, I don't know if they were dreams. This particular night, I decided to keep a yak back close by to record anything that happened. Right when I woke up, I fall asleep. I have a nightmare, but I remember it for some odd reason. There's tall figures all standing around me. One of them looks while the others physically grab me. I wake up again in what looks like a regular room with other kids. There's nobody I know. Some of them are older, some younger. We all stand there for a minute, until at the same time, we get an urge to do certain activities. Some were physical, some were more creative. I hear voices in my head constantly telling me what to do. I'm using some kind of tool to essentially paint. I can't fully describe it, but it looks like a tattoo gun, but it paints somehow. The creatures grab me again after a while. They stare at me with their gigantic eyes. I could see my reflection in them. I sensed horrible pain and suffering, yet bits of joy and happiness. I scream. The creatures open their mouths. There's no teeth at all. It spews this greenish bile all over me. I can't move. I pass out. I wake up in my bed. I'm backwards. I'm sore all over, and I have a scar. I search for my yak back. It's nowhere to be found. I ended up starting to sleep with my feet tied to my sheets, and I did that until the day the woman who became my wife asked me why. She believes in ghosts and stuff, but I feel this is kind of different. I feel crazy for even talking about it. So this happened way back in 2013. It was early in the year and I was 19. I was traveling in Vietnam by myself. I was in a mountainous area called Sapa, and it was nighttime. I'm trekking this hill, and suddenly it gets really steep. It gets so steep that I'm actually climbing on my hands and knees. I reach out to grasp onto a rock. It feels wet and slippery. I finally reach a flat surface and decide to pull out my sleeping bag and stay there for the night. I was quite high up, so I doubt that anyone would come across me. Laying there, I realized that it hasn't rained in days, and it's really dry on the ground. I kinda got freaked out, but I had nowhere to go, so I just tried to fall asleep. I got a little bit of sleep, and finally it was morning. It was light out. I go to the edge of the hill to look down. I see pools of blood all over the place. And then, down in the bushes, there's a goat that's been torn in half. I get back to town in record time. I have no clue what could have done that to the goat. I don't think there are any dangerous animals in that area, and the small fall from where I was not going to kill a goat, let alone tear it in half. So what do you think did it? This happened a few autumns ago. I woke up super early after drinking all night, and I can't sleep. I decided to go to this empty campground to cook steak and chill alone and just to rethink my life. It was one of those nights. The campground is this big empty field with grills, and it's surrounded by woods. So I pulled in, and I started setting up a chair and getting a fire going. I'm listening to some talk show like NPR or something on a little radio, just so I don't feel lonely. I look across the field, and I notice for the first time, there's like a blue tarp or something. I realize that it's a person with a big puffy blue jacket. I figured it must have been an early morning dog walker maybe. So I continue setting up and preparing my food. I look back at the person and they are still there, motionless. I start to think it's just someone's jacket maybe that got caught or left on a tree. I figure I should go find out what it is, so I walk toward it while the fire dies down a bit. Halfway across the field, I realize it's not just a jacket, maybe a mannequin. I walk closer and I say hello, and nothing. I keep walking closer. I see blonde curly hair. I ask, hello, again. A person turns around, scaring the hell out of me. They're really pale. They look like an old lady with red lipstick slathered on really thick. The paleness looks like makeup too, but I don't know, the skin just looked so weird. She stands there, smiling, like a grimace, and says nothing. I say something awkward, and I start walking back to my camp. I look back, and she's still looking at me. Eventually, she turns around again, and stares back into the woods. A while later, when I'm back at my camp, I look up to see if she's still there. She's gone. I look around. She's now standing on the other side of my car, again, staring at me, with that same grimace. I say, can I help you? And nothing. I say, what the hell's your problem, lady? She turns around and sprints down the field and rounds a corner by some trees and disappears. I think then, this is definitely not an old lady. Obviously, I'm super confused, but I also really need to go to the bathroom, so I pack my stuff in the truck, like my food and my supplies, and then I go to the camp restroom, which is just this building with a door on it. And it just has a single toilet, and the door is one of those ones where it has that cutout at the bottom of it. So I'm in this bathroom doing my business, when I start to hear thumping around the bathroom, like somebody is sprinting around and around it. Then someone starts pounding on the door. I yell at them. The pounding stops. There's this little vent next to my feet where the light comes in. I see that same pale white face, that same smeared red lipstick, that same grimace. I kick the vent and tell them to F off. They don't even flinch. They instead stare at me for what feels like minutes, but it was probably only a few seconds. Suddenly, they run away again. I go outside and see the park ranger was driving through. I tell him about this person. He says that he'll talk to whoever or whatever it is if he sees them. I decide to just leave. I stop by a dumpster on the way out, and as I'm throwing out my trash, just off in the woods, I see that same sweater, that same woman, or whatever it is. I don't really know if it was a person, but if it was, they were clearly insane. This is a story I heard growing up in rural Tennessee. It was mid-July and it was super hot. In the south, the humidity can be almost unbearable. Almost every summer morning, there's a nice, thick layer of fog due to the humidity. I live in a town called Lyles, and the family who are the subject of this story live in White Bluff. Lyles and White Bluff are about 30 miles apart, with a maze of roads between them. One would have to know their way around to get from one to the other, so the father in this family was a maintenance man for a church about 5 miles from their house. For whatever reason, he had to be there extra early that Sunday morning before church started. They all load up in the car and they pull out of the driveway and they are on their way. It was an especially foggy morning and the sun hadn't come up yet. There was only one turn that he needed to make to get to the church, and that was right beside a grocery store. So about 5 minutes into the drive, they see the lights through the fog of what should have been the grocery store, which the father thought was odd since the grocer didn't open until 8. As they got closer to the lights, the family realized something disturbing. They were coming up to a gas station in Lyles. Somehow, they had traveled 30 miles in 5 minutes without making a single turn or even seeing another car. This was quite a while ago. I was traveling with my mom through the country, following the 40 route. We were getting close to our first destination, which is my mom's hometown. It's a small town, about 15,000 people, surrounded by large farms. We are still 300 kilometers away. In less than 15 minutes, we are surrounded by a very, very thick fog. Being in the middle of the night, we can't see further than 2 meters ahead of us with luck. This is nothing unusual so far, as we are in the season for such a thing to happen, and it does happen quite often in this part of the country. Mom decelerates to 15 kilometers an hour and keeps that speed. She tells me to look around for lights. She wants to stop for a while at a gas station, or a truck stop, or a rest stop, or something. 10 minutes go by, and I see a light, but it's kind of weird because it seems to be too far away, but it still manages to get through the fog. It's at the sides of the road. It's a straight road, perfectly straight. That's how it was designed in the first place. I tell her. She asks me where, and I point. She lowers the speed even more, while looking at the light for a whole minute. Then she decides to just keep going, and ignore it. I asked her why, and she tells me it's fine. We should just search for another place. I keep looking straight ahead, and after some 20 minutes I realize that not only have we not left it behind, not even a little bit, but the light is approaching us slowly. I tell my mom and she tells me again, just ignore it, honey. I tried to ignore it, but it kept drawing my attention. 15 minutes later, it couldn't be more than 5 meters away from the road. Mom is still calm and still ignoring it. We see a light a bit up ahead of us, and this time it's obviously a gas station. Around 20 meters before we get into the gas station, this light that's been following us suddenly disappears. It doesn't go away, it just fades out, like someone turned off a switch. We stop there, I eat something, and Mom drinks a coffee, while we wait an hour or so for the fog to lighten up a bit before we resume. We eventually get to her town without further incidents, and around the second day that we're there, staying with some family, I remember and I ask her about it. She tells me that it was the quote, bad light, the old legend of the region. Basically, it's a light that searches for lost or nervous travelers, especially in the fog, and it draws them to it. It tries to get them to kill themselves, or actually makes them lost and kills them from starvation and thirst, or makes them fall from bridges, get stuck in the swamp, fall off a cliff, anything to kill them. There's many stories about what the lights are. One of them is that it's the soul of a traveler who died 150 years ago after he got lost and no one found his body. Another one is that it was a traveler who got lost when extremely hungry. The devil appeared to him and offered him food and water, and to also guide him out of there in exchange for his soul. The traveler accepted and started following the devil. The devil, instead of keeping his end of the deal, decided to make him fall from a cliff during the night, killing him. There's many other ones, it ranging to it being aliens, interdimensional spirits, some kind of other entity, like a will-o'-the-wisp from Ireland. But my mom was raised there, and she knew the story very well, and she says that she had never faced the bad light until that time that we were traveling together. A bit of background. I'm from Argentina originally, and the 40 route is the route that goes from the northern to the southernmost part of the country, and this is of course right before reaching the Tierra del Fuego, where you need to take a ferry to get there. It goes following the Andes mountain range. A few things happened to me while I was out on X. One of them was recently up in Shoalwater. To the Yanks that have been in the training area, they'll remember the urban facility. It's a little town over about half a square kilometer, made out of Connex and modified shipping containers. It's complete with doors, functioning windows, a realistic looking marketplace, and even a complex sewer system. It can even be accessed from various buildings and streets around the facility. The water came up to your knees in there and was full of cane toads, snakes, and even a few eels. So that brings us back to 2011 at Talisman Sabre. The enemy party was playing an enemy SF call sign. They would have their chest rig over a bomber jacket with a baseball hat, like all those accessories and all that jazz. So the Blue 4 SF situation has detected elevated radiation levels coming from the sewer. The Blue 4 SF mission is to conduct and coordinate search by night in order to try and locate the possible radiological threat. So, night falls. I have a pretty good relationship with my platoon sergeant. He walks up and tasks me with patrolling the sewer. He wants me to cap as many people as possible and then die in place. And I was like, man, why are you sending me in the sewer? So I open up the trap door and I climb down the ladder. The water is just below my junk at this stage. It's pitch black and I have no NVG. There's sounds of lapping water. The toads are doing their thing, croaking and stuff. I wade on, rifle up, using my Surefire F88 as a handheld torch. I have a rough idea where I'm going. I reach about the middle of the sewer complex. It's a big room that's shaped like a spider's web. There's connecting tunnels branching off in all directions. The plan was to duck down another tunnel when they started wading through, and then I would conduct a fighting withdrawal for a bit and then I would just die in place. So I lean against a wall, switch off my light and close my eyes for a bit, listening to the water lapping about. I decide to wait for the sound of choppers. They usually chopper insert when raiding the facility. An hour or so passes. Gradually, the noise from the toads starts to die off. The water is still lapping about though. There's movement around my legs. I flick on my light. There's a metric ton of cane toads swimming every which way trying to climb on me. I raise my rifle a bit and look ahead. More toads are literally climbing and swimming over each other to get away from one particular tunnel. I think, what the hell? I shine my light down the tunnel. The light disappears into darkness. I WTF a little more. I start to hear soft, ragged breathing from the tunnel. I shut off my light and I close my eyes and open my mouth to try and hear better. The ragged breathing continues, definitely not coming from me. I open my eyes. I switch the light back on. The breathing turns into hoarse laughter, like a patient with terminal lung cancer. The laughter increases in volume and ferocity. I begin to hear sloshing, as if something is moving down the tunnel. I call out our army's warning that we use when breaching with friendlies nearby. Our lads and those who have worked with us will know it. It echoes down the tunnel. The sloshing stops. Silence. The toads are still milling around my knees. Suddenly, the voice of my mate repeating the warning back up the tunnel. I exhale a pent-up lungful of air. I'm about to answer back and give him some shit when another voice from a different person in the platoon repeats the warning, then another, the same warning, then another bloke, then more, all different people, some that I don't even recognize. The voices get louder and start overlapping each other, as if they're singing in an out-of-time choir. I'm starting to get a little worried now. The voices abruptly stop, as if someone cut the cord. I'm left in silence again. There's no movement around my feet now. I quickly shine the light down. There's no toads. I bring the rifle up and shine the light down the tunnel again. There's a shape in the light. It's a sickly wet form stooped down in the tunnel. The body is a writhing mass of tendrils with a set of round yellow eyes that keep shifting place like a chameleon. I freeze for only a millisecond. I blink, not believing this at all. It screams in Sarge's voice, "Die in place." I bellow in fright, off the safe, and I dump a mag of blanks into nothing but air. I'm about to turn and bail down the tunnel that I came from. There's rapid sloshing water behind me. It's chasing me. I'm panicking, grunting and screaming, falling over, trying to wade through this water and all the screwed up toads. And then I hear it again. Die in place. I reach the ladder, gasping. I quickly sling my gat and I start yelling out to anyone whilst climbing up. Something grabs my boots and pulls me down. I slam my head into one of the horizontal rungs and I go under the water. I can't see anything, but there's a massive weight pressing down on me. Both legs and an arm are pinned. I feel repetitive blows around my midsection, like something's trying to punch through my rig. I can hear muffled yells from above the surface. I get gripped around the throat and I can't breathe. I unclasp my knife with my free hand. I start desperately slashing and stabbing at anything I can. I thrust into something and I can't get it loose. I start to black out and I lose the grip on my knife. There's light from above the water. I think it's death, like heaven. The weight relinquishes and inverts my knees as it bails off of me down the tunnel. I surface, gasping for air as much as I can. I hear panicked voices and my mates yelling down. There's a sound of rapid moving boots on the ladder. I look up to see my mate grabbing the shoulder of my chest rig, trying to pull me toward the ladder. He's yelling, "Grab the ladder, grab the ladder." So I grab on and climb up as fast as I can behind him. I burst through the trap door. I gag and vomit. Somebody unslings my gat and sits me down. There's chaos going on. Headlamps and torches everywhere. A bit of yelling. Someone tells someone to fetch the medic. There's blood pouring from my forehead. It's soaked through my shirt. My clothes and chest rig are shredded. I'm gasping for air. I'm looking like I'm in pretty rough shape right now. My mates chime in. "We heard your voice, bro. We heard you yelling. When we came near the drain, we heard Sarge tell us to stand down and go to bed. It came from the sewer. Yeah, we opened it up, shone our lights down, and we saw a shape move in the water. And then you surfaced. What the hell, bro?" I'd taken a few lungfuls of air. There's something down there. There's blank stares. One guy makes a joke and says, "Oh, I bet it's a bunyip." They snicker and call me a funny name. They pick me up and dust me off and we walk back to our connexes. I walk around for a bit. Some people are still up milling around, so I decide to try to find out exactly what happened. Apparently the Blue 4 attack was called off during the night due to some kind of OH&S situation in the sewer. Nobody knew I was down there. I try to find the sergeant to ask him what the hell. I politely ask the platoon commander where he is. Sarge was tasked at lunchtime with the Jackie run back in Rocky. He's due to return tomorrow morning. I rack out with an assload of questions and bad feelings. I wake up a few hours later, My knife has been placed right in front of my face on my stretcher. There's a few drops of that stagnant sewer water on the blade. I don't know what the hell's down there, but I am definitely never going back. So, what you think of those encounters? Let me know which one was your favorite one down in the comments. Do you have one of your own? I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you want to. Also down in the description is a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way. No pressure though. And with that, I think that I will see you in the next one. I will thank you for watching, thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you once again for 19,000 subscribers. I'll see you in the next one.